I'm Tim Dalliday, and I'm inspired by sport. Well, sport has been an integral part of my life from the earliest stages. My dad having been a competitive athlete, my uncles being, lacrosse and hockey guys. I had a cut-off hockey stick in my crib from the time that I was born and started throwing around lacrosse balls and baseballs from the earliest of ages, so I really don't know any different. I was kind of born into it, for lack of a better term, and we were never forced to play anything. We just loved to play.
Growing up, team sports occupied most of Tim's sporting life, but in 1984, he was gripped by cycling after seeing Steve Bauer finish second in the road race at the 1984 Olympics.
It's been a big part of my life for 35 years now, so it's kind of neat that it stayed with me. And having been a team sport guy growing up, lacrosse, hockey, football, baseball, it is quite a transition because you can just go anytime you want. You jump on your bike this afternoon and go out for as long as you want, or meet up with a couple of guys, or do the club thing. There's always an option there to do whatever you have time for, and the freedom to come and go as you want. So it's a little different than a team activity in that respect.
In his early 30s, a challenge was placed in front of Tim, a rare liver disease, primary sclerosingitis. His way through this challenge, a liver transplant 14 years after his diagnosis.
Just hoping to get to that finish line, and I was always confident and had a lot of faith that I would get a transplant. 20-25% of people unfortunately will die waiting for that transplant because the backlog and the number of people in Ontario right now. I think any given day there's almost 1,600 people waiting for a transplant of an organ of some form. So I was always confident and determined that I was going to get there, and thankfully I had a good, a friend step up, a fellow that I played some men's league hockey with, ended up being the donor after many people in the community stepped forward to be tested, and we had to get the right match and finally got it. And I'm eternally grateful for the gift of life, truly. But yeah, I was always confident that I would be back, and I was back running and did a 5K charity run for community care. We formed a team actually called Tim's Team to fundraise for community care. We did a 5K run out in Ennismore at the time, then it moved into Peterborough. So 6 months after having a life-saving liver transplant, I went out and did the 5K run, a little bit slower than I had been, but just grateful to be back exercising and be surrounded by some great people. And that summer got right back on the bike again, or that spring, I guess. So it all kind of came full circle, but I never lost faith that I would get back to the activities, and thankfully the transplant went very smooth and I was able to do just that.
Getting back to activities is an understatement, as Tim went to compete in the 2016 Canadian Transplant Games, winning 4 gold medals in cycling events and later being named as Peterborough's Adult Athlete of the Year.
Yeah, and it deepened some other relationships with people that stepped up to be donors for me that I didn't even know, that had anonymously been tested and didn't tell me at the time or what have you. And it really proved to me how strong the Peterborough community is and how giving community that we are, that people would do that be willing to go and get tested and do blood work and whatnot to see if they could help you and save your life, literally. And then meeting people in the transplant community, participating in my first Canadian Transplant Games in 2016 in Toronto. Winning some medals was fun, but it was more establishing those relationships, especially some of the younger kids that have had a transplant. One boy in particular, from the time born with a heart defect, to see him go through 2 heart transplants and getting ready to start college. So it was some really neat contacts made and shared experiences, and hoping to do a World Games coming up, which were postponed this year because of COVID. It's been rescheduled for next year, hopefully in either Houston, Texas or San Diego. So that would make it even cooler to meet people from around the world. And I have met some other people online through a couple of support groups, transplant support groups. So it has broadened my circle of people. And then the really cool thing is I've helped mentor 3 people from our own region get a transplant. And I never had that experience to be able to work with somebody and mentor with someone who'd been through the experience themselves. So to give back and to be able to help others and encourage them. And one gentleman here in Peterborough just recently was a really cool feeling to see him finally get there and have a successful liver transplant as well.
Now it's pure gratitude for Tim as he goes forward in life, inspired by sport and inspiring others with his story.
Well, I'd just like, as I say, thank the Peterborough community for all that they've done for me to encourage me and, in my walk of life to when I was in time of need, physically, of needing an organ transplant, and the support afterwards as well. How are you doing? How's it going? We really do live in an amazing community, a giving community, and I'm trying to do my part to give back to it.